September 26, 1983. The world was asleep, but the Cold War was wide awake. The United States and the Soviet Union stood on a knife's edge. Nuclear missiles were aimed, submarines were positioned, and one wrong move could erase millions of lives in minutes. Inside a secret Soviet bunker near Moscow, one man sat in front of glowing screens. His name was Stanislav Petrov. Petrov was not a politician. He was not a general with medals covering his chest. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, and on that night he was responsible for monitoring early warning systems designed to detect a U.S. nuclear attack. Shortly after midnight, an alarm shattered the silence. A siren screamed through the bunker. The computer system reported that a nuclear missile had been launched from the United States. Moments later it reported a second launch, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth missile appeared on the screen. 5 incoming American nuclear warheads heading toward the Soviet Union. Protocol was clear and terrifying. Petrov was required to immediately report the attack to his superiors. Those superiors would inform the Kremlin, and the Kremlin would almost certainly order a retaliatory nuclear strike. Hundreds of missiles would launch. The United States would respond. Within hours, civilization as the world knew it could be gone. All because of 5 blinking lights on a screen. Petrov's heart was pounding. Sweat formed on his forehead. Everything in the room told him the attack was real. The computers were designed by top Soviet scientists. The system was called OKO, meaning eye. It used satellites to detect the heat signatures of missile launches. According to the data, the United States had just started World War III. But something didn't make sense to Petrov. If America were truly launching a first strike, why only 5 missiles? Why not hundreds? Cold War doctrine suggested that any real nuclear attack would be massive and overwhelming. 5 missiles felt wrong. Petrov had only minutes to decide. If he reported an attack and he was wrong, it could trigger global annihilation. If he ignored it and he was wrong, his country could be destroyed. There was no time for debate, no time for meetings, no time for second opinions. Just one man and a decision that could end the world. Petrov made a choice that defied protocol. He told his superiors it was a false alarm. He reported a system malfunction. In that moment, he bet his life on his intuition, and possibly the lives of everyone else on Earth. The bunker staff stared at him. They were trained to trust the machines. Minutes passed like hours. They waited for explosions that never came. No missiles struck Soviet soil. No mushroom clouds rose on the horizon. The alarm had been wrong. The system had made a catastrophic error. Later investigations revealed the cause. Sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds had fooled the satellite sensors. The system misinterpreted the reflections as missile launches. A cosmic glitch nearly started nuclear war. Petrov had been right, but instead of being celebrated as a hero, he was quietly reprimanded. The Soviet military was embarrassed. The early warning system was supposed to be flawless. Admitting the mistake would expose weakness, so the incident was classified. Petrov received no medal. He received no public recognition. His career stalled. He eventually retired in relative obscurity. For years, the world had no idea how close it had come to destruction. The story only became public after the fall of the Soviet Union in the 1990s. When journalists learned what happened, they were stunned. One man had stood between peace and nuclear war. Petrov later said something chilling. He insisted he was simply doing his job. He claimed he wasn't a hero. He said he just had a feeling the system was wrong. But history tells a different story, because on paper he disobeyed direct protocol. He trusted human judgment over artificial systems, and that decision may have saved hundreds of millions of lives. In 2006, Petrov was honored by international organizations. He even received the World Citizen Award at the United Nations. A documentary titled The Man Who Saved the World later told his story. It introduced millions to the quiet officer who once held humanity's fate in his hands. Think about that for a moment. The survival of civilization came down to hesitation, not a missile defense shield, not a peace treaty, just doubt. just critical thinking under unimaginable pressure. During the Cold War, there were many close calls, but this one might have been the closest, because if Petrov had followed orders exactly as written, retaliation would likely have begun. And once nuclear missiles launch, there is no undo button. Stanislav Petrov died in 2017. For decades, most of his neighbors had no idea what he had done. He lived in a small apartment outside Moscow. He once joked that he was simply in the right place at the right time, but history may remember him differently, as the man who saved the world by doing nothing. So the next time you hear about global tensions or advanced military technology, remember this story. Remember that sometimes the most important decision in history is the decision not to act. Because on September 26, 1983, the world almost ended, and almost no one knew. Don't forget to subscribe.